Yo, what's going on, guys? We are back, and this is it, the final tournament for the overall playoffs Countdown Cup. Last chance for teams to get a stage victory for their organization. Last chance for teams to get overall points for the standings. And here we go. We're going to have a new champion, of course. For the main melee, we had the Dallas Fuel taking it, and then for the June Joust as well as the Summer Showdown, we had the Shanghai Dragons taking home those tournaments. This time, we are going to have a new winner. We have a couple of new entrants to this tournament style in the Dynasty and the Gladiators, and two teams who have been here twice in the Rain and the Hunters. So, matches start in a little less than 2 hours, so super excited for that. Can't wait to watch. I think that by far this is the most open tournament. It doesn't feel like there is a absolute certain favorite. Personally, for me, I think Hunters are going to be my favorite slightly. But I could see any of four of these teams winning. So yeah, we're gonna run through our pick'ems. We're gonna see what's going on. And let's see who I pick. First of all, we got Seoul Dynasty in the first match taking on the Atlanta Reign. So I'm going Dynasty here. Or sorry, not yet. I'm going Reign here. Now the Reign would be. I considered having them as my favorites. The reason they are not my favorites is because they do not have Pelican. And they still absolutely have the talent, and the star power to win it all with their DPS lineup in Edison and Kai. I think that they're two of the most talented DPS players in the league. However, Edison has not played a lot recently. And I know they got through. They got through to this tournament. They won their match up against the Defiant. In the qualifiers, or in the knockouts, I should say. But I think it's going to hurt them a little bit from a team synergy and communication standpoint. Because we had Edison and Pelican for a while, and then we had Kai and Pelican for a while. We haven't had both of these guys together for too long. And I think most people would agree that they were in the much weaker half of the bracket for the Countdown Cup knockouts. Having to take on Toronto. If they had to play the Shock or the Gladiators, I don't think they would have won. So, all of that being said, I'm going to take Atlanta here. And I'm taking them in 5. Went back and forth a little bit. But it's the first time for Dynasty here. I think we might see a couple of little mistakes early on from them. They are the 2 seed coming out rather than, trying to do being the 1 seed. So I like Atlanta here by a little bit. They went 4-0 in their qualifiers. They look really good in this meta. Do I think the APAC teams overall are probably a little bit stronger? Yes, but I don't think it's so close. Last time we obviously had absolute dominance by the APAC region. In the May Melee and the Summer Showdown, we had more of it was more 2-team dominance. But if you looked at all 4 of them, I think we could pretty much all agree that the West was stronger. The NA teams between Dallas a couple of those times, and then Atlanta and Florida, they were able to beat the team that wasn't Shanghai, that was in the knockouts. So while it's really, really close, I like Atlanta a little bit. They're more used to the stage. And Dynasty has players who have won a championship, so I don't think they're going to be super nervous. But in this, this slightly changed up format, you're in a different facility. Of course, in Hawaii, I just like Atlanta clutching it by a little bit. I think this will be probably a little bit sloppier of a match than the other one. But like I said, I feel like their tank line is a little bit more suited for this meta, just by a little bit, and that's going to be the difference. As well as having 2 DPS players that can just absolutely go nuts. Especially if the game starts to break down a little bit. I like Atlanta here on Control, and I've said it a million times in this channel. Control is just the most important map type. It really is. It's how you get yourself started, and it's how you finish. If it's a very close match. So I'm going to take Atlanta in a nail biter. And then we got Gladiators versus Hunters. And this one I went back and forth, and back and forth, and back and forth. Um, I'm going to go Hunters here. And I'm going to say it's another 3-2. I'm being hopeful here. Um, the Hunters have looked cleaner than they ever have. And to be perfectly honest, I just like Hunters DPS players a little bit more. And this hurts me to say, as you guys know, I'm a Gladiator fan. Have been since season 1. I've gone through the ups and downs. I love this team. The resilience. The fighting this year. They just couldn't win the big match, and they finally won the big match. They finally took down San Francisco. Insane match. I was hooping and hollering and biting my nails when they lost 2 in a row, and once again just going crazy when they came back. So, do Gladiators absolutely have potential to win this and the whole thing? Yes, like I said, all 4 of these teams could win. I think Gladiators have a little bit of a better support line. I think tank line, they're very, very, very similar. Maybe slight edge to Hunters, and then I give Hunters the slight edge in terms of DPS as well. I think Gladiators are probably a little bit of a more rounded team. However, I still think the Hunters are just gonna take it. I think that the APAC region has a little bit of an advantage with this type of meta. I don't think that they'll win flat out. Kind of like exactly like last tournament, but I think they have a slight advantage. And we see some Marisa Diva. We see the Ball Diva. See a couple of teams try the Winston, but that kind of died off a little bit. And we see some teams try to utilize the Rhine. Obviously, like teams like the Rain and the Gladiators are quite different. In the way that they go, Gladiators really like to rely on that ball. Although they do pull out the Orisa a good amount on certain maps. But Light Young has been so good for the Hunters. I think he's going to be a little bit of a wild card. I think Leave is going to really give the Gladiators backline some trouble. I think they'll adjust to it, and it will help them later on in the tournament. But early on, I think that the Hunters are going to jump out to a good start here, and they're going to be able to barely win a map 5. But this one could go either way. I really think that most of these matches are going to be really close, and they're going to be about obviously which team hits, which team hits hard, which team has a little bit of a better read on the meta per map. But it's also obviously loser picks map. So we're going to have that too. We're going to have a lot of back and forth, I think. And teams that make the second adjustment well are going to be the ones that win these matches. So I've got Rain and Hunters going through right away. Going through winners round 2 real quick, I'm taking the Hunters. I don't think this one goes to 5. I think the Hunters take it 3-1. And it's the things that I said before. I think that the Hunters DPS are really going to be able to just cause more consistent disruption to Atlanta. We will see though if they try to go a little more Pharah heavy. They have Jinmu. The entire match will come down to the Jinmu, with his pocket of course, versus Kai. That it's just what it's going to come down to. If Kai can shut him down, probably playing the McCree. I think we could all assume that it's going to be mostly McCree. Maybe a little bit of legs, maybe a speck of Widow, but I think it's going to be 99% McCree. That'll be it. If Jinmu takes the advantage in that one, the Hunters will roll them over. If Kai shuts him down completely, I think Chengdu's going to have a really, really hard time getting good attack rounds in. So, that being said, I think the Hunters are in a little bit of a better shape to empower Jinmu. Jinmu is, in my opinion, the best Pharah in the world, and I think that even though Kai is absolutely nuts at clicking heads, I think that he's going to be at a disadvantage here just because of the state Hitscan are in right now, as well as Chengdu's ability to really play around it. And remember, they have Leave. They have Leave that can just absolutely 1v6 your team as Tracer. He could just rip you to shreds. And Atlanta, they obviously have some experience playing against, Hunters and other teams like them. But that being said, I still think that the Hunters are in really good shape here, and they're going to punch their ticket into the grand finals. And then elimination round 1, we've got the Dynasty and the Gladiators. So this is a tough one, and I really hate predicting teams, going out 2-0, but it has to happen to one team. I'm going to go with my Glads here. I think they take down the Dynasty 3-1. Again, there have been times when the Gladiators' best just looks better than Seoul's best. Seoul has been so rock solid. This whole year, for the most part, last year as well. There were ups and downs, but they performed consistently when it counted. But they just couldn't quite win the big match. They always seemed to lose to Shanghai. That was always their big nemesis. And while I think that they're really close, I could see them beating Atlanta. I could see them beating Gladiators. I like LA a little bit more. It feels like they're really, really starting to pick up some steam as a team. This is a team that everybody was high on. It wasn't just me being a homer. A lot of people had them as a top 5, top 3 team going into the season. And while I definitely get the merits of Dallas and Shanghai, they've played in all of these tournaments. They're especially for Dallas, the technical throwing that some people thought was going on with San Francisco, I don't really buy that narrative. But what I'm saying is, I understand Dallas and Shanghai being a little relieved that they're not in this. Like, okay, we get some time off, we get a break. I think that only could ever apply to those two teams, though, because they've obviously, they've gone to between the two of them, they've gone to nearly every grand final. Dallas missing one, but other than that, getting all of the grand finals of these cups, it takes a toll. But for all of these other teams, they haven't won one. So it's going to be such a momentum boost to play in this, in the Hawaii environment and to be able to get that victory. It's not going to, they're not going to be thinking, oh man, we played so much, we had to travel, we're super tired going into the playoffs. It's going to be all momentum. And I think that besides probably I think the Hunters and Gladiators have the best momentum out of any of these teams going in. So, like I said, I got the Gladiators moving on to Atlanta, and I think they get their revenge on Atlanta. Like I said, I have to see Atlanta coalesce a little bit. I have to see them really start to take it to another level with the DPS that they have. It's every tournament where it felt like they were really, really ramping up, it all kind of fell to shambles, and I can't blame them entirely for the Summer Showdown. The West just didn't have a good read of the meta. They just didn't. We saw Atlanta and Dallas just got kicked all around, kicked all over the place. Atlanta suffered one of the most embarrassing defeats, any team I think has ever suffered in the Overwatch League to the Dragons. And then Dallas losing to Hunters and then getting another chance to play them in elimination round 2, and getting swept by them, after losing 3-1. It actually got worse for them. So it just wasn't there for the Western teams. So I'll give Atlanta a little bit of a break here. But that being said, I still think it's going to be Gladiators with the momentum. Atlanta has beaten them 2 times in a row now in extremely close matches, ones that went down to the last couple fights on the 5th map. So I think that they're going to get their revenge. If Atlanta had Pelican, honestly, I'd probably pick them. But I just think the Gladiators they're gonna do a little bit more. And they, like I said, they're gonna be coming off a victory if this goes according to how I predicted it, and Atlanta will be coming off of a loss. And I just think Gladiators are a little bit of a better team overall, just a little bit. And I think it's really close. You can compare the support lines, tank lines, and DPS lines, and you can argue about it for days and days. But might be my heart, overriding my head here. But I do think the Gladiators make it into a rematch with the Hunters in the finals. And you know what? I'm I'm going full bias. I'm going full homer. This Gladiators team it feels different this time. They got the one big victory. Can they get 2 or 3 more here? Sorry, 3 potential. Yeah, here it would be 3. It just feels like it's their tournament. Taking down a San Francisco team that played so well. Like I said, I wasn't really buying the narrative that that Dallas sold the bag and just lost to San Francisco on purpose. I think San Francisco were legitimately a bit better than them, and they've looked really, really good. And winning such a nail biter, with that team going down to round 3, map 5, I think it's what they needed, and seeing interviews, with Gladiators players and other teams' players as well. Well, I legitimately think any of these four teams could win, which I did not think for any of the other tournaments. It just feels like the momentum is brewing and building for this LA team. You know, the narrative was always that they can't finish the one victory. Now that they have it, maybe they go nuts. You know, we've seen that narrative with Philadelphia for the last few seasons. They never got that win that they really needed to springboard themselves and win it all. You know, obviously losing in the grand finals of season one. You know, the stage final that they just barely lost to Paris. It feels like now that the Gladiators have gotten that, it's just all hands on deck. You know, this is already one of the cleanest teams in terms of ultimate usage, disengaging. To go along with alt usage, cycling alts. It feels like they are really, really comfortable together. You know, it's a team that really does enjoy being around each other. Even with the mixed roster, it feels like the communication is just really, really good right now. You know, they have Shu, you know, on his essentially his best roles, you know, whether it's the Ana or the Batiste. And Skewed is just popping off on Brig. You know, he's hitting all the flails that he needs to. He's always rallying at the right time. So I think it'll be close. Like I said, back and forth, some swings here and there. You know, we're going to see some huge pop-off moments from guys like Late Young. You know, Gaga's, I feel like, is going to have some really cool plays and moments on ball. Jinmu and Leave are going to put on a show. But I'm going with my Gladiators to, get the first big tournament win, for the organization. And it's super exciting because whichever team of the four wins it, it'll be their first, stage championship. So it's awesome. I hope you guys are going to tune in. Like I said, starting today, August 19th, we've got the first two matches, and then we go elimination rounds 1 and 2 tomorrow, and then the grand finals, of course, are on Saturday. So I hope you guys are able to catch them all. As always, thank you so very much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Who do you got winning it all? Any big upsets? And tell me why. What's going on? Tell me why Gladiators are going to get they're going to lose for their first two matches and just be done. Interested to see what you think. But other than that, I hope you have yourselves an absolutely wonderful weekend. And we'll see you in the next one to talk about the winner of the Countdown Cup and start prepping for OWL playoffs.